social media strategy for the people that gave up. We're not going to let you give up. Look, most of y'all have given up on your 2024 New Year's resolutions. So buckle up, sit down, listen up. It's time to get serious again about how you're going to succeed with social media in 2024. Okay. So this is social media strategy for the people that gave up. We're not going to let you give up. Allison and I, we've been talking about what are some things that in 2024 you need to be thinking about your social media strategy. What didn't work last year? What stopped you from actually using social media to grow? And so we have a couple of things that we want to talk through, hopefully give you some advice on how you can take maybe things that didn't work out for you last year or things you've been wanting to try but haven't gotten around to, and actually make this year the year you make something happen. Here. All right, let's get started. I'll ask you this. So Allison, I feel a lot of people go to social media and they've got their goals that they want to have for like their account, and those sometimes are separate from the goals that they have for their business. When you talk to people who are doing social media, what are some common mistakes that you see when people are trying to set goals for their social media growth?
I think the biggest mistake that I see when I talk with clients is they are trying to bite off too many things at one time and then expect perfection from all of those things. So what I mean is they are trying to do a YouTube channel and they're trying to then do short form content on top of that, and they're trying to do a blog and their website and just everything all at one time, and then they expect those to be perfect. And so maybe they take hours and hours and hours recording one YouTube video because it has to be absolutely perfect. Or they're then trying to do every single trend of this dance on TikTok or this style of trend on Instagram instead of then repurposing that long form content. And people get burned out super quickly. So to avoid that at the beginning of 2022, we don't want to be already burned out of our goals and stopping that progress, is focus on one thing and then how can you repurpose that for others. So I think YouTube is actually one of the best places to start. Start by creating that long form content, chop it up into short form content, and then you can also take your script from your YouTube and make it into a blog. And then it's just so easy. You're not having to research a million things. And you can still bring in key things of maybe some trending songs on TikTok or trending audio or hashtags on Instagram to tailor it to the platforms, but it's a much less work that you're putting into one piece of content.
And all the platform specific stuff really is optimizations. It's not going to be the make it or break it if the fundamental content's wrong. Have you ever watched Project Runway?
Just a few episodes, not very much.
So
I'm not really into trash TV. So.
Okay, yeah. Well, my wife is super into trash TV and she loves Project Runway. So I've been watching a ton of Project Runway. And it's funny because I think a lot of people that make social media content, they treat it like they're going to New York Fashion Week and Nina Garcia is going to be there judging their content. Your content is not every single piece needs to be this giant artistic expression that represents the core of who you are. When it comes to social, in the same way that like every conversation you have with a human being doesn't need to go perfectly. Your content online is you having a conversation at scale with tons of people. And in the same way you're going to mess up conversations one-on-one with people, you're going to mess up your conversations one with 1,000 people.
Right.
And the best, healthiest thing that you can do with your content is develop a relationship with it where, look, I am not going to be so married to the outcome of this content that I obsess over every frame of a video.
Correct.
I'm going to make a video, ship it, go, and then by practice and repetition, get better at making content. Don't get caught in the trap of perfection. It will ruin your ability to actually grow on social media.
You know who's the best example of that is Millie. If you watch some of her videos, she burps in some of her videos. She's done a montage of burping, and I think it's hilarious and truly just shows how authentic she is on her platform, but also just she's not worried about perfection. She's worried about the message helping her audience, and learn from her because she is so good at that. I think the other thing that's going into the perfectionism that I've dealt with clients or people I've worked with them for their social media content is they are wanting every little pop-up or B-roll to be exactly what they pictured or has to fit exactly what they're talking about. And it has caused delays in getting their content out because it's going through 4 or 5 revisions because they're wanting such specific things that the audience isn't going to give
a rat's ass about.
Thank you. They're not going to care about it. They're going to care about what you have to offer them. What is your message actually important? And is it going to help them in whatever niche or industry you're in? So stop worrying about those little details.
Big truth. Big truth. Let's talk about the challenges to people's goals. Look, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're using social media to build a business, don't let social media become a distraction from you actually running and building a business.
Absolutely.
And I think you've got to look for ways to make social media as personal and as authentic as possible, while also taking the least amount of time for you as possible. And sometimes those things are really diametrically opposed, right? It's so hard to go in and record a reel or record a TikTok. Those things take time. Even with all of the tools that are out there, you will still spend hours creating that stuff, right? And if you're looking at your business, the question you gotta be asking yourself is, where can I make the most impact with my time? And maybe at some points in your business, that's going to be through making those reels and TikToks yourself. But at other points, I think it's important for you to have a system in place where you can easily send content to get it edited and get it back. I read an article about Gary Vee. Here's the way that Gary Vee does his content. He records content and he has an iMessage group that he sends to people on his team, and they go and edit it and they text it back to him, and he gives feedback on it and he sends it back. I feel like that would be hella annoying to do that over iMessage. iMessage isn't built for video revision rounds, but that works for him. We built our app so that people could do it in their pocket, right? Content team in your pocket, send the raw footage, get it back, do the edits and all that to make it as convenient as an iMessage thing. But at the end of the day, it's not about what service or system you're using. It's about just having one, right? And so if you're a business owner and your goal is, I want to grow through social media, then the question is, okay, how much time is that taking in proportion to the rest of the things that you're trying to do? And if it's becoming this giant time suck, you should probably start delegating and getting some help on that instead of owning all that yourself.
Absolutely. I also feel like being consistent with it is so important, even if consistency for you is once or twice a week. If it's not every single day, 5 reels going out every day, some form of consistency is going to improve your reach on social media. And so setting aside time that you record and bulk record more than one video at one time and have it ready to go out for that week's content is going to go a long way. But setting aside that intentional time of, okay, I'm not going to respond to any messages at this time. I'm not going to, whatever, you just set aside an hour, whatever it may be, set up a tripod, record a video, change your shirt, record another video, change your shirt, record a video. And then you've got 3 videos in 1 hour. Mm-hmm. And then, you can edit them after that or send it off to us and we'll edit it for you. But just make that a consistent part of your day-to-day of making that content or your week. And going into that, let's talk about how to plan out your content for a month, because I feel like one of the hardest things is knowing, okay, what should I record next? Mm-hmm. So what tips do you have for creators to help them to plan out their content for X amount of time?
Yeah, I think the key with planning out your content is you've got to have a system that keeps you flexible, but also keeps you consistent, right? Yeah. So one of the dangers I see is people are, oh, dude, I just plan out a 6-month content calendar. I've got 6 months of content plan. And it's kind of, okay, cool. What happens in a month when the world changes?
Right.
What happens in 2 months when the world changes? What happens when the formats start to change and the mediums change? We used to create, 2 months or 3 months worth even content for clients up front. And what would happen was they'd be like, hey, changing direction, changing style, right? We want to keep up with the trends. And all of a sudden, all that work has just gone to waste.
Right.
And I think I see oftentimes that creators want to pre-build so much that they end up actually just making all their content feel super stale, right? Mm-hmm. So much about social media is it being a conversation and a feedback loop. And if you're creating content that you planned 6 months ago, you kind of removed yourself from that feedback loop. Now, I think what you should do is you should identify, what are my content pillars?
Absolutely.
Right? These are the things that I'm going to talk about consistently. So that way you can plan out a week in content and say, Monday, I'm going to talk about this. Tuesday, I'm going to talk about this. Wednesday, I'm going to talk about this over the next 2 weeks. So almost plan out your themes and then just get a little bit ahead on the calendar so that you can schedule things out, right? If you're gonna go on vacation, schedule that so you can go on vacation. I think there's a lot of awesome content creators who are really bad at running a content business. I know people that have hundreds of thousands of YouTube subscribers and they're still editing their own videos. Why? Why are you doing that? If you want to be a content creator or an influencer as your actual paid profession, you've got to figure out a way to not be the person editing your videos and managing all that stuff for you. You can't build that business to what you're trying to make it if you're also the one that's editing all your videos, because that's only one of the ways you monetize. It's only one of the ways you build influence. It's only one of the ways that you can create content. And there's so many incredible artists that need to learn how to delegate their content creation so they can actually make a business.
Well, and the video editing part of it is one thing that is an easier one to delegate, whereas then you can spend your time, instead of editing the content, you can spend it researching new trends or reaching out to brands, pitching to brands, figuring out how else you can monetize on your platform. There's so many other things that can be helping you to grow while they're editing your content, right? I think that's a great idea. What works really well for me personally as I've planned out my content is exactly what we talked about of content pillars, having those key topics that I'm going to talk about every time. But then I would go in, I actually used Trello for this because it was free, and just went in and I created tasks that I would have the content pillar and the topic that I was going to talk about. And I planned out maybe 20 videos at one time, and I'd alternate through the topics, and then I would go in each week and I would get the content ready. And so I would start with the first one, I would script out my video, I would look up my hashtags, figure out what my hook is, record the content, edit it, and I'd put it all on this Trello task in the one Trello board. And then when it was time to post it, I would schedule that post and get it out. But then I was doing all of that in one chunk, and then the rest of the week I wasn't worrying about it. That really helped me a lot with getting out my content consistently. And then I failed at continuing to do it over the holidays. So that is my goal for 2024 is
This
to
video's for you.
continue that. It's for me. I needed this. I really enjoy content creation. And that's my other recommendation. Remember that content creation can be fun. Don't let the small things suck the fun out of content creation because you're so worried about perfectionism or all of that. So enjoy the journey too.
Yeah, one other thing I'd say about that is there's so many people I see that have a good concept, they create the concept, and then they post it, and then for whatever reason, the algorithm just like doesn't get it. And there's a one creator I really, London Lazarson. He's local here in Utah, actually. Cool. He's awesome. He was talking about one of the things that he's learned is that when a video fails, don't just completely abandon the concept or even the video. Change it up a little bit and then repost it. So much of the time we think that we're going to exhaust our audience with our content, and in reality, most of them don't see it.
Right.
And hardly anybody remembers what you post anyway.
Right.
And so if you really want to create a lot of content, don't be afraid to just repurpose what you have and just put a little bit of variation, twist, put a revision on it and throw it out there, because you might have just had a bad luck day with the algorithm.
Especially a video that doesn't perform very well, right? Then less of your audience already saw that. Why not make it into more or change something up so that it can do better and more people can learn from that?
Okay, so here's a question. How do you keep yourself motivated throughout the year? It's hard to pick up the camera and just keep recording.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the grind.
I think for me, it is finding the joy in it. And I've had to find my own balance of posting stuff for my audience and posting stuff for me. I really love sharing the little tidbits about my family, my daughter learning how to walk or whatever. That doesn't necessarily benefit my audience. That is more for me. And I think that is what has helped me to continue to create content, is finding that good balance of posting some stuff that is just purely for me because I enjoy that type of content or creating that content, and then also posting the content for my audience that is going to help them. That's definitely what helps me to stay motivated. What about you?
When you were talking about creating for yourself, it made me think of this. There's this director who has directed Minnie, an Oscar-winning film, and one of the things that he says about the creative process is you've got to create for yourself first. As soon as you bring the audience into it, it's where you get lost. Which I think there's some good advice there.
Absolutely.
I would balance that with, you also need to create for somebody. I think when you're really trying to build an audience, you've got to keep, if you just create something and you're going to get thousands of views, you kind of can skew the creative process. It almost helps if you think of one person in a chair and think about them watching your video and what's their reaction going to be. Because when you put it in context of another human being versus the algorithm, I think you actually create stuff that's more meaningful. I think that so often people get caught in the algorithm trap and they create for the algorithm. And I think that's where the monotony comes in. That's where the grind comes in of, oh, I don't feel creating, because you feel creating for a robot. And you've got to remember you're creating for a human audience on the other end of the algorithm, the other end of the platforms, on the other end of the likes and the shares and the comments and saves. There's a human being there. What are they going to see when they see your content? And I think that for me, to stay consistent is I have to have so clear in my head the picture of what I'm doing something for. Life gets busy, life gets stressful. There's always a reason to not do X. But if you get really clear on like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, what's my life? What's the life of the people I care about going to be if I do this thing? That's what I can always come back to. And so if you're really serious about social media, then the question you should be asking yourself is, okay, when I build this audience, when I grow this audience, what does that actually mean for myself? What does that mean for my business? What does that mean for the people I love? What does that mean for the impact I can have on the world? If you get really clear about those things, that'll take you through the shittier times.
I love that. Going along with that, we work with a lot of real estate agents. And one of my favorite things to help them in their content creation process is to think about, okay, who is your ideal client? Is it a first-time home buyer? Is it someone buying an investment property? Who is your ideal client? And that's who you create content for. What are some common questions that you're getting asked that you could even include in your email, right? Multi-purpose, put it on your social platforms, but then also like you can answer a question that you get often in emails and put it in a newsletter. But think about who is your ideal client, ideal audience, and that's who you create that content for.
One of the things that I think is important is accountability and reminders. So we literally just the start of 2024 released a feature in our app that is content creation reminders. And they're just funny, silly emails, push notifications, so that if you're trying to be consistent, at least something's there prodding you to tell you, hey, go make a video, go record something. And then you combine that with our customized ideas. The goal is, as a creator, to make it really easy for you to just show up, record, and go, right? But I think if you're not going to use our app, who do you know, who cares about you, who understands your vision and your goals that can kind of be that accountability partner? Or if you're a Slack person, me, a Discord person, me, go set up a bot that's just going to send you over like a scheduled message, right?
Yep.
Send you a scheduled message. There's so much noise just competing for our attention.
Absolutely.
You've got to figure out a way to get that itch scratched in your head that you need to make something that's going to cut through that noise.
Yeah, there's even just the reminders app on your iPhone that you can put it in there and set a reoccurring time and set up those things now that will set you up for success the rest of this year, because then you will get those reminders and block off time in your calendar to create content. Those are the things that are going to help you to be successful creating content in 2024.
If you have already fallen off the wagon with your goals, this is the time to reset, get grounded again on why this is important, what this can actually do for you, and then put the systems in place, whether it's reminders, whether it's delegating, whether it's planning out your content. Put those systems in place so that you are going to have a consistent presence and grow your audience. Have those conversations with everybody online. It'll be worth it. Bye.
Bye. Stay creating.
Bye.